Hey everybody, this is Picolo-Ramos. I just wanted to tell y'all my story. I know there's a lot going on politically right now, and this is not a political post. This is me just kind of giving you some insight into who I am and what has happened in my life. So right now there's a vote on abortion and pro-life and pro-choice and all these different things, and you know, I know some people are conflicted, so I just wanted to just share my story. So not a lot of people know this, but my husband and I had 2 miscarriages. Both of them were very traumatic and very tragic and really heartbreaking. One of them specifically, I was 13 weeks pregnant, and I remember the ultrasound because the baby was waving in the ultrasound, so it was pretty significant. And that was, I think, at like 11 weeks. And I had fell, actually showing houses, I fell, and I think I hit my stomach and something dislodged. And then 2 weeks later, I went into labor. And I went into labor in my bathtub, and I had the baby. And I held this little baby. It actually had, the baby had passed around 11 weeks. And before this event, I was neither really pro-life or pro-choice. Honestly, I didn't really, I just kind of like say la vie, very like do whatever you want to do. Because I didn't really understand much in that. So I don't really have a view on something if I don't really understand it. So I ended up holding this little baby in my hands, and I had named the baby Promise. And I just remember thinking this 11-week-old, you know, what they would call fetus, but I call it a little human, had all 10 fingers, all 10 toes, nose, mouth, the eyes were big, kind of a little bit of an alien head, but it was a human being, and she was precious. And so that was my first kind of thought of maybe this whole pro-life thing is important, because I didn't realize that these little babies are babies. They're human beings. So then recently I found out that my great-grandmother was raped, and she only had 1 child. One was adopted, but biologically she only had 1 child, and that was my grandfather, and he was born from rape. Apparently it was a sailor, and she was very young, and obviously this was a long time ago, so the stigma was even worse. If a kid was born, or if a person was pregnant out of wedlock, the baby didn't even have a last name, especially if the father leaves or wasn't present. So thankfully the doctor actually gave my grandfather his last name, and then she got married and that last name changed and so on and so forth. But I didn't even know that my grandmother was raped, and I didn't know that the son that she had that had 7 children, one of those children was my father, was a product of rape actually, and his eyes were the same, I believe, as the guy, because my grandfather's eyes nobody else had, and actually I had my grandfather's eyes. So it's rumored that I actually had the same eyes as that person who committed that tragic atrocity against my grandmother. But she never had any other children, and that baby that was born from that situation became her lineage, her inheritance. And out of what was a really terrible situation was that was the same thing that took care of her as she got older, was the same thing that gave her hope in a future. And what was meant for evil to destroy her was used to bless her. So I know a lot of people talk about I think about what could have happened had we had the same culture and the same thought process that we do today. She would have probably been very encouraged to have an abortion. Most women that are in this day and age are saying, if you're a product of, if you get raped, you should have an abortion because the rapist shouldn't have that in you. And again, I'm not advocating that any man should be allowed to do anything to a woman, but what I feel is that this human being that's born from such a terrible and tragic situation, their life is so important, because not only is it their life, but it's their children's life and their children's life. And obviously Brittany Picolo-Ramos from Selling the Big Easy wouldn't be here had my grandmother or my great-grandmother gotten an abortion. So I am voting yes. Again, I'm not condemning anyone. This is not a video to condemn or shame anybody. I think that, and again, if you want to message me your story, you're welcome to. I love you. I can't imagine going through something like that. Actually, I can't imagine. I was in a very abusive relationship before my husband, and he was actively trying to get me pregnant. And I remember thinking to myself, if I get pregnant, at least I could have an abortion potentially. And I'm not saying I would have done that, but it did cross my mind. But I have my daughter now. And even if she would have been born from a really tragic situation like rape or incest or whatever, she is so precious to me, and she's completely different than my husband and I. Like, we had her, but she's a totally different human being. She has her own dreams, her own aspirations, her own thoughts, her own. She's a human, and then she's gonna have children. And so I would just encourage you, before you make a decision on being pro-life or pro-choice or whatever you decide. Again, I'm not shaming you. You are welcome to decide whatever you want to decide. But I would encourage you to take a moment and think about the life, because your voice is important. And had your mom chosen not to have you, you wouldn't even have this potential decision of making a vote, because you wouldn't exist and your life would be taken. So something to think about. I know I'm probably going to get some hate mail. I know I'm probably going to get some mean messages. And I hate that, because we should be able to talk about things freely and openly and love each other without being fearful of repercussions of people bullying you or shaming you or abusing you. And if you do send me something abusive, I'm just going to delete it and block you. So that's that. But I just want you to know that I love each and every one of you. Your messages give me so much joy and love, and I'm so glad each and every one of you exists. So that's it. Love you all. Bye.